Okay, so this is a screen capture of how I study for my O-level history world affairs test. World affairs from 1917 to 1991, basically starting from the beginning of the First World War until the end. So here I am, I have just taken from the O-level side all the summary that I'm going to need. Then I started with, I want to go with an overview, kind of what happened regarding international relations, and then I've got each of these sub I've got each of these topics that the Cambridge the Cambridge exam is going to test me on, and I find it so exciting. So what are the tools that I have besides what I have on the computer? Is I have an O-level textbook and I have paper and pen. Okay, but most of my information is just much easier to communicate being on screen. Okay, so first of all, what I went and did is I just got an overview of the 20th century over here, World War One, then the Russian Revolution and everything, the empires, and then in a war, World War Two, and then Cold War, and then in between, of course, during the time of the Cold War, we have the League of Nations over here, and then we have the United Nations, and then we have the Korean and Vietnamese wars. So those I was studying more. Okay, so what I did was, before the 20th century, I went and found out what world powers were like, what happened before, and then I had some topics here that I have read up on, and then of course then the British Empire. And then I have this lovely map here that shows you just how vast the British Empire was. I mean, these were autonomous states, but still, I don't think China was ever under the British. Yeah, I've got to fix that. Okay, Hong Kong was under the British. Okay, and from Queen Victoria, then Queen Victoria basically entered the 20th century and then died. And then there was King Edward, and then find out what kings were back and forth. Now, some of the areas of study that I really enjoyed. Okay, just gonna show you part of this presentation of mine that helped me develop an interest and cultivate that interest in 21st century history. Okay, so from beginning, 20th century in women's fashion, because that really reflected a lot. History really reflected a lot. So there were 5 major divisions. You have it, and then here we have, okay, what fashion became by the end of the century. Okay, so from how did it go from that right in the left hand corner down to that in the bottom corner? So 1900s, 1910s, 1920s. You can see, if we were to go back, let's say this is the Edwardian era. Alright, that was a bit of a takeover from the last century. Fashion began to be behind centered and waistline. Okay, then you have the First World War fashions. We have the 1920s, when there was a movement, they were called the Roaring Twenties. Women suddenly had short hair, and then like kind of like wide shoulder, straight cut kind of fashion. The wide shoulders stayed on to the 1930s. This was the time of depression, and then we have the time of World War II, end of 1930s to the mid 1940s. So this is the 1940s. 50s, you can see you start to get that classic silhouette. Then we have up to the 60s. You can see how the knee lines have gradually just gotten higher and higher until it's just below the knee. Okay, now that's when history changed. We had the Cultural Revolution. Not counter movement. Okay, things started to change. For example, you can see immediately hemlines begin to raise, and oh look, pants suddenly become high fashion, and oh look. So that again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These were the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then we have the 90s. Oops, that didn't come out right. Okay, that's another picture that's supposed to come out. Okay, 5 major factors that affect fashion. The wars, okay, women's liberation, rise of individuality, I mean individual expression, because before that everybody had the same look. Okay, by the time it got down to the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, okay, after the 60s, everybody began to have their own unique look that basically anything goes. I mean, there was such a wide range. You could wear long or short or pants or skirt. You could wear any color, any hairstyle that suited you according to the latest fashion. So that's a rise in individuality, not so much dressing and looking as how society would expect you to look. And of course there are political changes and economic changes, of course changes in culture and society. Now you can see that the changes of the 19th century were rather drastic when compared to first picture 1400 and 1500, 1600, 1700, and then to 1760, not much change. Suddenly 1800, there is a huge change when we have the empire waistlines, for example, during the time of Jane Austen. Then suddenly we have the fashions of the 1900, which were basically, I'm just showing you mostly pictures of royalty. And finally we have, in 2000, we have Princess Diana. Now, it may not look like such a change, but you have to realize that what people generally wore during those earlier stages were what they always wore. Whereas if you look at the time of Princess Diana, if you look back at the last picture here, you can see people really changed in fashion. A lot more skin began to be shown. Well, yes, I mean, there's not a lot of difference between the queens in the previous picture to Princess Diana, but you have to realize that Princess Diana could wear pants and could wear suspenders or whatever else she wanted to wear, whereas before that everybody wore the same thing. So you can see changes to the centuries, the 19th century being the most exceedingly drastic. Okay, I mean the 20th century, the 1900s, the 20th century became the most drastic change, where just hemlines just began to soar up, and silhouettes and everything. Not everybody needed to have the same silhouette anymore. I mean, during the Edwardian era, everybody wore the same silhouette, the same corsets. But if you go down to the last picture, you can see, oh my goodness, there is a big difference there. Everybody could have a different silhouette. No, so okay, and that's just hard. I just examined that, and I just gathered a lot of facts and kind of thought through them. And then here is another project that I'm doing, and that is the maps. Okay, I was going to graft. I know it's going to be very difficult, but I want to graft exactly how the world changed, and using paint I could fill in the British Empire, the German Empire, and then like have an evolution of the map. For example, the Soviet Union just took up this whole portion here. I mean, communism suddenly just became a huge portion, and then suddenly it went away, and now China, maybe North Korea, Cuba, and well, just not that many communist nations anymore. And before that it was like British Empire, Ottoman Empire. Then after World War II, the British Empire just boomed and just First World War, and then it was decolonization, where suddenly all these little colonies become all these colonies just suddenly become nations of their own. It's called colonization. I'm just going to show you a map. I hope that's right. Okay, great. This is the one I was looking for. Whoa, suddenly all these countries except China and maybe the Ottoman Empire was just completely controlled by Europe. I mean, just like completely by the French, British, Dutch, Belgian, Spanish. And suddenly they become independent nations. And you know what that changes? It changes the religion of an entire world. No more is the world controlled by European society, by European values. Suddenly the whole world's suddenly, emerging. We have emerging China now. We have, it's just so different, alright? And so different from the centuries before, because now the countries of Europe are no longer colonies, and nowadays they're kind of on decline and having economic trouble. So the religion of the world definitely changed a lot. I mean, institutional church just kind of died after World War II, and I have thought through those issues, morality and religion and culture, and just immersed myself in what happened and what was the 20th century about. And so amazing. Wikipedia is totally amazing for homework, and I can imagine how much we can learn when we have the internet, how much we can gain from all the knowledge that is just available at our fingertips. Then now in the 20th century, when we have so much at our fingertips, it is the time for us to begin to think. It is the time for us to begin to examine the facts and to develop our thought. Because we can become lazy. We can go on Facebook and just write a message and just, condense our thoughts to 140 characters in Twitter. But the truth is, we can communicate and communicate so freely and so quickly and so efficiently, and we can have all this information that if we apply ourselves and begin to study the issues, the changes, that we don't really need a textbook. We're going beyond the textbook. And that's what I love about the Cambridge O-Levels curriculum. Throughout the curricula, throughout the entire curricula, they're just asking you to be able to apply and understand. So commonly when I read through the Cambridge O-Levels subject study guys, it's just like apply, understand. The aim of all that they're teaching is so that you can begin to explore for yourselves and learn for yourselves. And I think that's so amazing, and that's just the way I should be learning. In education, for me, it's like I can take all the best methods, eclectic or classical. I can take those methods and make them my own, so that I am a complete person, whether I can completely cover the British syllabus or the American syllabus, which I have also covered, and now I'm switching over to the British syllabus to get the best of everything. And then I kind of apply a lot of Waldorf and Montessori tools to my learning too. And then I want to learn the classics. I also want to be educated in the way the King Edward the First, people in the last century were educated. I mean, in Latin and world history, and to understand and be able to read information from that era. Oh, okay, Gutenberg really helps. Okay, I'm just gonna show you a book from, see all my interests here. Their household administration. You just get books straight from the era that you're studying yourself. 1770, okay, this is a textbook, the arts, 1918, and you just explore Gutenberg and you get all of this. And it gives you an insight into the culture, and also how you can apply the stuff that you learn. You can read the books from that era, you can read the way they thought and the way they wrote, and you can look at pictures, you can understand what were cameras like during the 1910s, how did the film industry evolve, and then you go back and watch shows like Leave It to Beaver, Full House, The Gilligan's Island, and be able to understand the media and culture of that age. It's so amazing and so interesting. So I hope that studying history for the O-level exam or for anything will suddenly become really alive, really exciting. It's like a journey of discovery, and maybe you can go on that journey and discover for yourself and begin to compile information for yourself and decide for yourself how you're going to view life, and how you're going to view history, and how you're going to learn from history.